Today we have a special guest by the name of Max Maxwell. If you haven't heard of him, he's most known for being a real estate wholesaler. But in reality, he's more than that. He's a serial entrepreneur that has his hands in quite a few different projects. But today I'm here to talk to him about his experience traveling the world and what he sees and what he's learned in living a global lifestyle and employing people internationally. Max, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate you having me on here.
Absolutely. So I think it's always interesting to hear an entrepreneur's backstory. Now, I know that you grew up here in Winston-Salem, but let's kind of go back to Max at 13 years old, right? Because I feel like that's when most people start to really define themselves and kind of shape their world.
Yeah.
What was Max thinking when he was 13?
I'm not 100% sure. You know, I think at 13, because I graduated high school at 17. So when I was 13, I was in high school. I started high school. You know, I was just kind of finding myself at that point. I've had so many different life experiences that kind of shaped me to be a chameleon in so many communities. And I've kind of explained, both of my parents are immigrants to America. My older brother and sister were born in Jamaica. My mom left them with our grandmother. She came here in the 80s, had me, was here, established herself, and then brought my brother and sister back up. And so now at this point, I've got immigrant parents, older brother and sister who have been raised in Jamaica, and here I am as a firstborn American living in New York. And so going through that, my parents had decent jobs. My mom worked in the healthcare. My dad was like a computer technician at like the Pepsi Corporation. And so you started to see, we moved to North Carolina. So we go from the city, not New York City, but Mount Vernon area. Then you go down to Winston-Salem, North Carolina in 1993. You can imagine, you see what it is now. You can imagine what it was at 93. And so then, you know, we move into a predominantly white neighborhood, you know, learning to chameleonize and be around everybody, and my family's being so open, and you're getting to see and experience so much that a lot of people probably don't get to experience. My parents get divorced. Then I'm moving into, you know, what people call the hood. We experienced that for a year or two, and then my mom was like, "Nah, we're gonna go back to the other side." And so I've been a chameleon my entire life, but being the middle child, having two older brother and a sister, a younger brother and a sister, I've kind of fit in where I needed to fit in my entire life, and I wasn't afraid to try new things. So in the family, I'm the guy that went out and met new people and done new things. And so at that age of 13, I had so many life experiences. You know, by 14, I was working a full-time job, working in the concrete construction, doing hard work with my neighbor who owned the company. And so, you know, Bob Cott, old white guy, took me and his family, made me kind of see a different side. And so I think at that age, I just started to get my work ethic in, started to understand and appreciate hard work.
You know, what's funny is I've always watched and saw similarities in how you approach business and how you approach life. And your story is not different than mine.
Yeah.
It's actually very similar. My parents are Haitian immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest brother was born in Haiti. The rest of us born in the United States. He grew up with my uncle, right? So already he has a completely different lifestyle, life experience than I have. I grew up in a, I would say, predominantly black, middle-class neighborhood, affected by the crack epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
Seen way too much violence growing up. But at around 14 years old, I started working on cars. I had a dude in my neighborhood who had an auto body shop in his garage. And I was just curious, kind of looking in, wondering how that would go. Started working on cars. I got my first car when I was 15 with the intention of flipping it.
Mm-hmm.
Started flipping salvage cars. And that really lends to me flipping real estate because it's the same logic.
Correct.
You buy distressed, spruce it up, sell it to somebody who wants that.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing that you had to kind of transition these worlds, it's quite interesting because I had the same experience. Privately schooled. I went to one of the top high schools in New York. And I was one of 8 black kids in my year, one of 8 black men in my year out of 700 students.
Wow.
Right? In a school with 3,000 students. So I'm from what would be considered the hood, and having to live and operate in this other world. I need to be able to survive in both, especially walking around in a uniform, right? So I'm also a target. So all of those things shaped my mindset to know that there's more to life than what I'm being told in this hood.
Yeah.
And I feel like most people who go the entrepreneurial way usually have that tension in their lives where they have to learn how to solve problems, how to do, and how to advance. So I was curious as to what your background was. Now, you grew up here in Winston-Salem. Your parents moved here, I'm guessing, for maybe economic opportunity or change of environment.
Yeah,
right?
New
York is an expensive place.
Relocated my dad. The corporation relocated my dad.
So that was the motivation.
Yeah.
And do you feel that in being in a town like Winston-Salem, it gave you some advantages that maybe big city folk
absolutely
may not have? What would you say that is?
You know, one being the small town vibe and being able to like know a lot of people in the town, being able to take advantage of opportunities, because, you know, in New York, it's hard. There's so much competition when it comes to everything that I've got to know people that were at this level of success and, you know, here and there, and just kind of, it's not like everybody was in a community, but you got kind of knew enough, like you had this sense of community. But growing up in this area, you know, it was easy for my dad when he retired to start a restaurant, right? Because it was affordable, right? The rent wasn't New York rent. You know, it was, there wasn't a ton of Jamaicans down here. So he was one of the few or only restaurants. So people flocked to it because the flavor palette was unique. And, you know, getting to be down here, I got to interact with, even though New York is one of the most diverse places in the world, I got to interact with a lot of people on a more closer basis because of there's just not that many of us. We don't have the pockets. You know, you have your black side, the white side, but then you don't have the forced pockets and that you kind of have to move into in like Little Italy and, you know, those type of places. So we have to just interact with each other more, and the opportunities here, and it's more affordable. It was more affordable for my parents, right? It was everybody got your own bedroom. You know, just that small thing, you know what I mean? And organized sports were more affordable, and I could ride with the neighbor, or there was a park in my neighborhood or something like that. So I think it gave us some advantages for sure.
So at one point, you went broke. Right?
Personally, yeah.
And
a couple times.
I've seen that you had like a video that said you went from your mama's couch to millionaire or something like that, right? I feel like being in a small town like this is a little more forgiving.
Absolutely.
Way, right? And I see that as something that our generation is missing. We're around the same age. And I feel like there's this generation of people who are here in America who feel that real estate prices have gotten out of touch, that the cost of living is too high. And they're always looking at San Francisco, Austin, Texas, Miami, New York City. And there's these other thriving communities like Winston. I've seen Winston grow over the past 20 years.
You have a family member that's.
Yeah. My brother moved down here for medical school and stayed because he saw what his money could get him here.
Affordability.
On his physician salary. And he's like, if I went back to New York, I'd be getting paid what, maybe 20 grand more, but my expenses would be double what they are. I get a better life here. My kids get a better life here. So ultimately, I feel like people are missing the boat on these smaller. This is what, like the 4th or 5th largest city in the state.
Yeah.
Why is everybody so hooked on the glitz and glams of the big city?
I asked that question. My wife is from Queens. My barber's from Queens, right? And so, like, I'll take my barber for example. He says when he moved down here, it was like he couldn't explain to his family back in New York why it was the best move ever. But then he got his mom down here. He bought a house. He bought his parents a house. He said, I'd never be able to do that over there. And then his talent shined so much in this area because it was not all the other Dominican barbers that could cut just as good as him, even though he's the best. But, you know, you don't have that competition or less of it. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. I've asked this question before on social media. Why do you stay in New York even though you know it's too expensive and it's not worth it? Like when my wife moved down here, I was like, we don't fight for parking. You go to the grocery store, there's a parking spot.
People like being associated with the New York brand.
Yeah, but they, you know, what I've heard so much is like, oh, well, I get to see opportunity. There's so much opportunity in New York. Yeah, but you don't get to participate in that. So if you're okay with seeing it and not being able to touch it, you live outside the glass. I'm inside the glass. I can touch those things. I'm not window shopping. I'm shopping in the sense of opportunity, you know? And so because you can or could, like, you think about it, you could, when we came here in 93, you could buy a house for under 100,000. Like $83,000, $85,000 would get you a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. Obviously it's grown since then, but now, I mean, even now you can still find a decent house under, you know, sub 150. Mm-hmm. And so with a yard, with your own driveway, you know what I mean? Yeah. Now you may not make $100,000 a year, but you don't have $100,000 a year worth of extra bills and stuff like that. Like, I live on a 20-acre pad in a $1.5 million house. I make $6,000 a year in taxes, and people think that's a lot. I know people in Queens paying $1,200 a month with no driveway and no draft
for a basement apartment.
You know, just in taxes.
You said $1,200 in taxes,
just a month.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have a property there that I'm paying maybe $18,000 a year. So
that's more than a mortgage down here.
Yeah, it's absurd.
With the mortgage includes the tax. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. So I like to try to point people in that direction, because you could buy a house, 100,000, 120, 150. What is that going to run you? 900, 1,100 a month?
If that.
Right? You build an equity. You're in a community that's growing. Like, why are you hooked on being in these premier neighborhoods? And I think people are hooked on being in these premier neighborhoods because of what it says about them. I can afford to live here, so it must mean I'm somebody. I think that's the only thing that makes sense.
But not if you're living in the basement of a 3-family.
Well, you don't need to show that. You don't need to share that. Right? You just need to be able to post up in front of whatever and say, well, this is the life that I'm living. And I think that's what people are more kind of getting wrapped up.
We don't have time for that.
No, definitely not.
Too far behind to be able to want to keep up with the Joneses or whatever today's term is. But you got to think smart, and you got to think long term. And it's, unless you're in the top 5% or 1% of the nation's income, even the top 10%, it's really not conducive for you to be in New York unless your job is tied to it.
Yeah, unless you're tied to finance or something along those lines, that you could only be there. I left New York in 2019. Best decision I ever made. Better taxes in Florida, better living, closer to the beach, better weather. It's just much better being down in Florida as my U.S. base. The way that I learned about you, the first video I ever saw was the $100,000 a month wholesaling operation. And I love that video because
I hear that a lot.
Systematically break down how you structured that company to perform at $100,000 a month for you. Organization chart, using international staff.
The pricing and everything.
Pricing, everything. I was like, this guy is cooking with gas. And that's when I started following you. I was like, because I'm investing in real estate, I'm looking to structure myself better. And he laid it out for free, clearly, concisely, professionally. I was like, all right, this is a dude I could follow. This is a dude I can invest time in. Since you've been working with international folks, and you travel quite a bit, I've seen you in Ghana, Dubai, Jamaica, of course, home. What do you feel you've learned from working with an international workforce and even seeing the world from eyes other than just the American point of view?
You know, I've been able to grow up in a household that we visited Jamaica, you know, once every 2 years or so as kids. And so being able to do that, I've been able to see other perspectives pretty early on. But traveling as an adult to make my own decisions with money, I realized that we are now more than ever in a world economy. And you can't be trapped into just thinking with your Western United States mind. And so there's hardworking individuals, college-trained, educated individuals all over the world that would die to work for your corporation. And when you open a business, when you open a business, the main purpose is to, well, you have a financial, you have a fiduciary responsibility to the holders. And at that point, the holders could just be yourself. So you have a fiduciary responsibility to be as profitable and manage the money as best as you can. And so there's a crossroad at some point where you say, okay, I need this to grow, but I can't afford that to grow. And so the international hiring and hiring folks and speaking to folks from internationally gives you that option to get equally as qualified people at a very decent rate so that your company has the opportunity to grow. And it's foreign to a lot of people because only 36% of Americans have a passport, but you don't need $20 or $15 an hour in the Philippines to live. If you can make $5 an hour, you're getting paid as much as a nurse or a pharmacist in that country. And so somebody that makes $5 to $7 an hour is the breadwinner in that family. And they live well. They go out and buy cars, they have a house. And so you got to undo the idea that everything costs as much as it costs in America. We're a very, very expensive country to live in.
Extremely expensive.
And what happens is, what most people don't know is the cost of living has raised. And there's a chart, I'm sure you know, there's a cost of living has raised since like the 80s, but the wage has not. So there's a big gap between the cost of living anywhere in America. And so that's why people say move to places like North Carolina where it is more cost effective. But then if you really want to be, smart, move off all the way out of it so that you can still make some good money. You can make your American wages, but live in a country that doesn't require you to have that big gap in cost of living.
Yeah, the way I put it out on my channel is that in about 60% of the world, you could live on $1,500 a month, the same way that an American would live on $6,000 a month. Why stay?
$1,500 a month across the world is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. In Colombia, for example, I have a place in Colombia. Mm-hmm. My 2-bedroom apartment, doorman building in the better part of town is $600 a month. And that is kind of on the higher end, right? And the staff that we have down there, their salaries range from like $900 to $2,000 a month, plus some commission options. Mm-hmm. And there are people who are providing, they're the children, but they're the number one earner in the household because they're bilingual, college educated, working for an American company. And I'm able to get more resources to help in my healthcare staffing company, my home care agency, even on most of my real estate property management is done from Colombia. And you get so much more for your money from a talent perspective, mm-hmm. and also from a way of life. What countries have you visited and like spent enough time to kind of study the economics? I just want to kind of go through what you've seen and how much you get for your money in, for example, living in Jamaica. Yeah.
Living in Jamaica is amazing. You can definitely live off $1,500 a month. Jamaica is one of them. We're building there, and still trying to buy more land. Ghana is very similar, stretches even a little bit further. Dubai is expensive, but not as expensive as portrayed online. You can still get a $1,200 a month apartment in a very good part of town. Okay. And Egypt is very, very affordable as well. And I'm talking like Cairo. And they're currently building a new city called New Cairo. And so all those places are very affordable. The one that is probably matched with United States is probably Dubai. But Dubai has its pluses that are over the United States and vice versa. But Dubai is an amazing place. That is where we're purchasing our next home right now. Leaving a few days, actually.
Do you spend time in the Philippines as well?
I've never been there. So part of me wanting to be more towards the east is so that I could visit a lot of the things that I have operations in. So I've had employees in the Philippines for 7 years and never been. But now I'm going to be much closer, living in Dubai. I'm going to be 6, 7 hours from China. I can go to Pakistan. I can go all these places where it's resource, right? You want a sew and cut type of shirt, I can go to a manufacturer and visit them and come back within 2 or 3 days and get my stuff done versus coming all the way back to the West.
So for you, Dubai is strategic because it brings you closer to kind of manufacturing and labor, mm-hmm. while offering the amenities of a big city.
Yeah.
of course, tax benefits and
0% personal tax.
So all that comes along with that. So that's always fantastic. So it gives you good positioning overall. When it comes to advice, right? Like you've created a YouTube channel really to educate. I'm sure there's a part of you that enjoys teaching people how to maneuver in this world. If you're talking to our generation and maybe those a little bit younger than us, to try to guide them and model their life, what would you say to someone who's, I don't know, 26 years old, starting to kind of find their stride, either professionally or as an entrepreneur? What advice would you give them to arrive at the point that they believe they should be in their life?
You know, it's hard to say, you know, exactly, because the goalpost is always moving. But what I can tell you is don't really pay attention to social media in the sense of trying to set your goals based upon that fairy tale book we call Instagram or TikTok. That's what it is. What you're looking at on Instagram is the best portion of somebody's life.
The highlight reel.
It's the highlight reel of the highlight reel. It's their Hall of Fame moments. But what I will say is that one thing that I think will allow you, the younger you are, the better. I've recently donated $20,000 to a school called QEA to send 45 kids to Ghana for the first time to be able to see what it looks like and experience it for 8 days. And the reason why I felt so passionate about that, to donate 20,000, and I may have to donate more because we got to get to a certain level by a certain time, is that I want people to travel. It saddens me that only 36% of Americans have a passport, and probably more than a quarter of that have only been to Mexico or Canada to use that passport, or the Bahamas. And that was because they recently forced it, that where you had to have it to go to Mexico or Canada, right? Before, so I could imagine what the numbers, I could imagine what the numbers were before then. But what I will say is that traveling gives you a better idea of what the world has to offer. So don't base your entire life and life goals of one view or one, perspective of the world. You need to go see it yourself.
Traveling gives you more data points, right? You're a data guy, right?
Yeah.
So you can't make your decisions with one data point. You're going to make really inaccurate decisions. So
that'll be good for you.
You have to accumulate knowledge from all places, and you're going to be able to compare what works really well in other countries that doesn't work in your country, and vice versa. And that's where opportunity lives. So for me, my advice for somebody who is 25 years to 30 years old, kind of finding their professional stride, is you have to employ yourself. You have to earn money, right? Figure out whatever amount that money is. I advocate for people living out of the country. If you're able to earn money in the United States, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 a month remotely, a lot of people working remote now, go to another country. Go to Colombia, go to Sicily, go to Ghana. Save your money and observe what's going on around you, because you're going to absolutely be able to find a business opportunity. And since you are offsetting your monthly burn rate, your monthly spend, you're going to have such a richer life. If you can't go international because that's too much of a stretch for you, then consider that smaller community, that smaller town. It allows you to start working your way ahead, especially if you're living remotely.
It's a lot less distractions too.
Yeah, a lot less distractions. You're not going to have as much money leaving your pockets. The thing that kind of stifles people from growth the most is, I don't have enough capital, or
you never will if you keep thinking like that.
Yeah, exactly. If you keep living in a larger city. So for me, my goal is to help people live out their dreams.
Yeah.
Right. And most people's dreams are limited by how much money they make. Right. So what I've done is teach people how to invest in real estate. I have a course that teaches people how to invest in 1 to 4 family real estate the way that I have over the past, let's call it 17 years now. I also developed courses on how to start nursing agencies, home care agencies. So you have these businesses that you can build abroad. You don't have to be in the United States to run a nursing agency.
Correct.
Right. And if you want to have, for the price of 1 American employee, you could have 4
easily
bilingual Colombian employees, right? Or Filipino employees, or you insert it. The project in Cairo, is that your call center that you're at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got close to 1,000 agents Total company is over 3,000. We have our portion is over 1,000 dedicated to, not only real estate, but other professional fields like insurance or whatever it is, because these are college things. So what happens is you look at the world economy and you say, okay, where can I get the most bang for my buck? Where are people highly educated, but the jobs are not there for them, or the income is low, and then go in there and pay more than what they're getting to remove them from that college trained job and put them in something that is more lucrative for their family. And if it's a call center, it's a call center. A lot of these people are even in Cairo working remote. Our quality assurance team is in the office, but everybody else is not in the office, right? You know what I'm saying? And, I was in Jamaica the other day, just kind of go back to a topic that you were talking about. I was in Jamaica the other day, and I was talking to a family member, and the family member, he does well. He's successful, does his thing, but he was, I was showing him Upwork, right? Because I'm on Upwork and I'm seeing so many people, because I probably spend at easy $5,000 to $7,000 a month on Upwork on random tasks that need to get done. Some of it is repetitive in the sense of like, I got a website guy that can build you a $10,000 website for $1,800, and he's in Pakistan. So imagine when he's getting $6,000 a month from me, because I have so many things that need to get fixed and all these. And so I'm showing him a profile of somebody living in Jamaica with the same skill set that he has, that shows that he's made $120,000 on Upwork in Jamaica. Imagine what $120,000. So you're seeing, what happens is you're seeing people from other countries become more and more resourceful to use their skill set to be able to serve the world.
Right.
Not just within Jamaica, not just within, they're using these skill sets that they have to be at service for the entire world. And that allows them to live within their country, but live at the top of the spectrum. And so for you as a, college educated, hardworking, or just trained American, you can go live in these other countries, work remotely, and you put your skill set online so that other people across the world will hire you for that skill set. It could be as simple as copywriting, whatever it is. You can live in that country, make $75,000, right? Which will put you at the top of wherever country you're at.
Yeah.
Living well.
Yeah.
And then you learn about how not to pay taxes because you're under a certain threshold of income and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. That's where we are now. And the longer it takes you to realize that, you're going to sound like the old people. You're going to sound like the old workforce that said, what happened to our factory jobs? We need our factory jobs back.
Yeah.
They're not coming back.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Look, we have this forecasted recession, right? And I'm sure you see it across the board, right? I've been kind of fearful of this for the past 2 years. I'm like, this is not sustainable. This feels like, oh wait, too much money's moving around. People are getting too reckless. It's coming. And you know what's happened to? A lot of remote workers. Mm-hmm. So what's keeping the American company who's paying you remote at home, right? What's keeping them interested in employing you for $8,000 a month when they could hire 8 of you somewhere else that are happy and hungry to take the $1,000? What do you think is going to happen? See you later. You better, I tell people they should start negotiating pay cuts and moving abroad. Like, go to your boss, say, hey, look, you know what? I really think I might want to live in Colombia, Brazil, Ghana, Italy, Sicily, etc. Pay me $4,000 a month, right? No benefits, nothing, straight pay, and
go live off of $1,200 and put.
Yeah, you're gonna be in so much of a better position, and I don't see why people just aren't seeing it this way.
It's the new denial. It's the factory workers who are saying you can't take my. Oh yeah, they can. Like I see some of the biggest banks in the country not have close their banking branches. They got one big tower, but you may have some customer service down there. The rest is online. Where did all those people go? You know what I mean? It's coming. It is. So get on it, find a skill set, and make sure that skill set is marketable and do it.
Absolutely. Max Maxwell.
That's it, man. Appreciate it, man. I thank you so much.
Thank you.